Hello friends, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. My name is Kate and I love all things makeup, skincare, beauty, and fun. Today we're going to be talking about if I could only keep 10 eyeshadow palettes. May I say, this was like torturous to do. I have nearly 200 eyeshadow palettes, so keeping 10, I would rather perish. So if you're interested in this type of content, please go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. I would love it so much if you consider subscribing to my channel down below. And without any further ado, let's go. Okay, so the way that I did this was I was trying to curate a collection out of 10 palettes. So these are not necessarily like the 10 top favorite palettes in my collection. I will say most of these are favorites in my collection. However, I was really trying to be mindful if I could only keep 10 eyeshadow palettes, what I would be able to get the most versatility out of, what type of looks I'm going to be wanting to do, and how I could like really formulate a full collection out of 10 palettes. I'm going to be honest with you, nothing about me is a minimalist. Nothing about me is a minimalist. So having 10 eyeshadow palettes feels like torture for me. It feels like I'm being punished, but at any rate, I did this. It was super challenging for me, but let's go ahead and get into the palettes. So the first one that I had to keep is pastels because I knew that I was going to want a pastel option in my collection. I think the best option for that is going to be this one by Glamlight. This is their Ice Cream Dream palette. So this just has every pastel color that I'm going to be looking for, and it also has some brights in here. So I just felt like this was a really well-rounded palette. I love Glamlight's formula so much. It's one of my top tier favorite formulas. So I know that if I'm looking for a colorful look, a pastel look, I'm going to have great success when I reach into this palette. The next palette that I chose, I was really noting that I am going to want neon shades. And neon shades, honestly, I feel like are so hard to come by unless it's an indie brand. And even then, I feel like it's hard to come by. So it was a no-brainer that I would definitely have to keep my Blend Bunny Surge palette. This is just stunning. Like absolutely stunning. I love this row of neons. I love that it has pastels up here. I love that you can build depth with these neons and pastels. Blend Bunny, again, has one of the best formulas, in my humble opinion, on the market. So I knew that when I was wanting really bold, really colorful eye looks, that Blend Bunny would be the way to go. And I don't think I would regret having gotten rid of my other colorful palettes if it meant I could keep this one. This next palette is just kind of a wild card as far as meeting a need in my collection. This is the Soul Mane 2 by Odin's Eye. I just love this palette. I love purple eye looks and I love orange eye looks. Blue I'm like kind of coming into, and I feel like these blues are, for me, feel really safe. The formula is 5-star. I love all of the purples in here. I love all of the oranges in here, and so I know that if I kept this palette, it would fill a void that these other palettes aren't able to. So really, Odin's Eye formula, again, just like one of the best formulas. That was another thing that I really tried to focus on, was like, what are the formulas that I love to work with? Like, I have to keep those. And I'm gonna be honest, I love most of, if not all of the palettes in my collection, hence they're in my collection. So again, super challenging, but this definitely made the cut with the mix of the purples, oranges, and blues. I just love this palette. I love warm tone neutrals. Despite the fact that most of the time I'm wearing color on my eyes, when I am going for an easy everyday look, I'm definitely reaching into warm tone neutrals. And so I knew that this palette, this is probably one of my top 3 palettes of all time. This is by Natasha Denona, and it is her bronze palette. So many people give this one so much flack. I love warm tone neutrals, and this is a warm tone neutral lover's dream. I love that you have some darker shades here to build some depth. The gold and orange and copper shimmers in here are absolutely stunning. This is by far my favorite palette of Natasha Denona's, just because the formula is so top tier. It practically blends itself. Practically blends itself. So there was no way in heck that I was going to build this makeup collection without this palette in particular. I do love the Ambiance palette by Sigma, which is also a warm tone neutrals palette. I love Sigma's formula, but this is just a little bit better, and I just love Again, I love that there's ability to build depth in here, as well as the shimmers are just really super special. While warm tone neutrals are my go-to, there are days when I just want like a cool toned neutral vibe. And so for that one, definitely the Mary Jane palette by Melt is where it is at. I know Natasha Denona has, and I can never remember the name, she has the cool tone neutral palette. I have it down here in my drawers. But I just think that I would want something a little bit different. And this one definitely has, in my opinion, more depth than the Natasha Denona one. These shimmer shadows are super special. Their matte shades are super pigmented. In my opinion, they're really easy to blend and blend on top of each other. I just think when I think of when I am going for a really cool toned, neutral, or even smoky look, what palette do I reach for? And the answer was this one. I personally really love Melt Cosmetics formulas. I have not tried a Melt palette that I haven't loved. And so I think that I would be really happy with this choice in my new 10 palette collection. This next one is just, it's like soft and romantic and another staple for every day. This is by Laura Lee Los Angeles. This is her Nudie #2 palette. Her Nudie palette is really great and it has beautiful neutrals, but this one is super special. I love this pink shade, and I especially, as you can like clearly see, I love this maroon shade. I love the color story of this one. I love that there's like that very neutral, very common saddle color, this like dusky rose color, and this peach color mixed with really special tops of shimmers and sparkle. I love this palette. I think this was my favorite in 2021, and I think that's when it came out. It has since stayed in the top 10 of all time palettes. It's just so easy to work with. They practically blend themselves. They blend really well with one another, and the shimmer shades are really special. So 10 out of 10, I love this palette. The next palette is by Lunar Beauty. It is his Moonspell 1 palette. So here's the thing. I love spooky shadows, and this is just like the perfect Halloween palette. Again, I love purples, I love pinks, and this one has like beautiful greens and teals. I just think this is really beautiful, and it meets a need that would be missing without it. Again, I do have that Soul Mane 2 palette with the purples, but these tones are different than those tones, and I definitely love a really punchy purple and or green look. So I think this is a super special palette. I think the formula is absolutely top notch. I would be lost without this palette. As I mentioned, I love pinks. So this is by Unearthly Cosmetics. This is their sleepover palette. And I just think that I would feel the need to have a really beautiful pink and purple palette in my collection. Pinks and purples and greens are my top favorite colors to wear when I'm wearing colorful eyeshadow. I love Unearthly's formula. They have huge pan sizes, so this would definitely last me a long time. If I only had 10 shadows to play with, or excuse me, 10 palettes to play with, I would definitely be going through eyeshadow certainly much quicker than my current 200 collection. So I just think this is really special, really beautiful, and really meets the need of like, I have to have punchy pinks in my collection. This Pat McGrath palette caused me so much turmoil because I also love the Divine Rose palette, but I did end up going with this one. And I cannot remember. Oh, Utopian Dream is the name of this palette. So this is what the palette looks like, and I'll tell you my rationale here. So I knew that I wanted a neutral pink palette that was going to be like have pops of color, but also be mostly neutral. And I felt like this one had those pops, whereas the Divine Rose palette really does not. But I also can go for that like more dusty rose look if I want to. That's one of my go-to neutral looks, which is why, again, the Nudie #2 is in here, because I can create those looks with that palette as well. But these really, really special shimmer shades are like unmatched. So I really felt like I had to include a Pat McGrath Mothership palette in here. And I just feel like if I really was only able to keep 10 palettes, this would meet a need that the Divine Rose wouldn't. So the Utopian Dream it is. The last palette that I would include is actually like brand spanking new to me, but it fills a void in my entire collection, let alone this little 10 palette collection that I don't have. And that is by Nomad Cosmetics. This is their Royal Europe palette. This just launched. I love Nomad's formula. They're largely consistent for me. So I don't have a ton of palettes that really focus in on those jewel tones. Honestly, not until recently have I really been into those jewel tones and really been able to appreciate them and work with them. Nomad's formula is unmatched, and I love these duochromes. None of my other palettes have those special duochromes, so I really think this would fill two different voids where it would be able to provide those beautiful blendable jewel tones while having that special flair that is the multi-chromes in here. Those are all 10 of the palettes that I would keep if I could only keep 10. What a nightmare that would be for me, honestly. Please let me know down below which palettes you would keep if you could only keep 10. Let me know if this was hard for you or if you kind of enjoyed this. I know like some of my friends are definitely more of the minimalist types, so for them keeping 10 eyeshadow palettes makes good sense. For me, it's like my worst nightmare. It's my own personal hell, not being able to have all the options that I currently have. So this was hard, but it was actually really fun to be able to like think critically about my collection and like how would I formulate a smaller collection if I had to. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. I would love it so much if you would subscribe to my channel down below. As always, please stay happy, stay healthy, and stay blessed, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.